Technology, thank you, where he got his master's. But he came back after working both in the UK and in the US and developed interest in politics. And he's throwing his heart into the ring for the Lagos governorship seat under the People's Democratic Party. He's an advocate, he's a public policy analyst, he's been involved, and I'm sure you know a lot about Lagos. Gbadebo, your CV here is very, very long, and I don't want to take, if I were to read your CV, to take a long time, maybe half of the time. But I will stop there and go straight to the question, why do you want to become the Lagos State Governor, and why the People's Democratic Party? You're welcome. You can add any other introduction, whatever I didn't say, and I will allow Pastor take it from there.
Okay. Thank you very much for having me, and thank you everyone that's joined onto this conversation. My name is Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. Like you said, you talked about my educational background, so I don't think I need to touch on that anymore. I will say, though, that my sojourn into politics started from activism. I spent about 2.5 to 3 years of my life fighting the government or involved in the struggle with the government because at the time, Femi Adesina was trying to bring in genetic modified foods as a agricultural mechanism that farmers were supposed to adopt. And I was very opposed to this because it did several things. One, there's the health implication and health factors associated with it. So our major export partners, mainly Europe, and in using that technology, we automatically destroyed that alliance because all of a sudden they have laws against genetic modified foods. So it had health consequences, it had economic consequences, and also food sustainability on our side as well, because when a farmer plants that seed, they cannot replant it. You have to buy again from the big biotech company. So that's led me into, I actually got very depressed about it. And I remember my father came to me and said, you know, you don't just move about stuff, you do something about it. And then that's how that process started. And it climaxed in a 2000-man march in the Senate that I led. And I got into politics because in one moment, 4 senators came to address us, and all they kept talking about was how they were 2-time governors. That really, really irritated me because I believe that if you are leading people or you're a representative, you must have a certain level of empathy. You must have a certain level of concern. And I came back to Lagos that day and I went to see my father and I said to him, you know, I'm joining politics. We need more people that put the people first on the side of power, on the side of the lawmakers. And I joined CoOp Party because then obviously I was extremely idealistic and I felt that, you know, PDP, APC were the bad parties, and I saw life, where you come from pure activism, it takes some time to actually understand real politics. And I ran for local government chairman of Ikeja. And then after that, when I was baptized by fire and I saw Nigeria for what she really is, I realized that, you know, if you want to really do politics, you cannot really think about politics in your, just based on your values and how you see things. You need to meet Nigeria where she is to take her where she needs to be, if you're that passionate and you're that concerned. And so I joined the PDP and, you know, just started doing my tours, meeting leaders, getting to understand the party. And that's when I then was able to get the ticket at 35 to contest as senatorial candidate for the largest senatorial district in Nigeria, based on population. We have about 11 million people in that senatorial district. And I was fortunate enough because in the party, I had the highest amount of votes for a PDP candidate in the entire election cycle. So that's put me in good stead with the party. And the reason why one wants to be governor, one wants to get into that position is to serve, to actually be a servant leader. And everything that I feel is wrong with Lagos boils down to two things. One, a lack of accountability and transparency, and a lack of a social contract that is not followed or is non-existent. For a state that prides itself on so much money generated in IGR, you would imagine that that state will uphold the social contract more than any other states in Nigeria, but it's non-existent. And I feel that if you just make Lagos a lot more efficient, a lot more accountable, and you put the people first, Lagos can actually become truly excellent, because as it is now, it's barely good. And unfortunately, most Nigerians, what we do is we normalize inefficiency. And like Fela would say, with suffer and smile, you would find somebody thinking that the best way to get over road bumps is to buy a Range Rover, or the best way to deal with the poor education system in Nigeria is to send your children abroad or get health checks abroad and things like that. And I feel that Lagos has so much more potential than it's living up to. And I believe that with fresh ideas, centering the people, a government of empathy that puts the people's interests first and centers the people's interests, Lagos can be so much more. So I hope I've answered your question.
Right. Thank you, Gbadebo. I hope you can hear me.
I can hear you fine, sir.
All right. Thank you, Gbadebo. Thank you very much for the courage and the boldness to go into the political terrain. What has happened to the CoOp Party, and why did you leave the CoOp Party? I know you did make an allusion to it, but if you could expatiate properly better, why you found yourself, first of all, in the CoOp, and then finally left the CoOp and moved to PDP, and what has happened to the CoOp Party?
I cannot speak for what has happened in the CoOp Party because I've not followed their affairs for some time now, to be honest. I joined the CoOp Party because I felt at the time, I understood politics as black and white, that there are good people, there are bad people. Good being, people that are accused or bandied in national dailies or media as thieves, corrupt, and all of that. And I felt that, a party that did not have any stain and was just pure was the right way to go. Now, I think the moment I realized personally, my own personal conviction was running in that election. I did love public good, so I would fumigate entire wards. I would bring training workshops to empower people in terms of capacity building and all of that. But I could not bear the idea that I had to share food or buy votes. I was never afraid for security or anything, but that's really kept me up at night. And on the day of election, people were coming to all my agents and saying that we really like Gbadebo, want to vote for Gbadebo, but he has to drop something. He has to, even if it's 500 naira, I would rather collect his 500 naira than APC's money, but he must drop something. And I think that was extremely heartbreaking because I spent almost 7 months spending a lot of time at grassroots and doing a lot of grassroots work. And we came third in that election. And I was campaigning and building the campaign structure at the same time. So that if you run an election, you understand how difficult that is. And for us to come third without buying any votes is a pretty big deal because there are a lot more established parties that were in that race than CoOp Party in Ikeja. So I felt that if you're serious about politics in Nigeria, one, you need to understand and respond to the electorate. It cannot be based on your value systems solely. The second thing is structure. Structure is extremely important. Politics is a very, very serious thing, and it's a lot of work. And if it was okay to run for local government chairman and be build structures at the same time, but the moment you want to expand to that, to House of Rep or to a local government, it becomes extremely difficult. So structure is extremely important, and also support from a party. You know, you need a party that can actually give you proper support when you want to move that way. So that's why I joined. And personally, by conviction, everything that I feel is wrong with Lagos was caused by the APC, in my opinion. Everything that I have a problem with, because PDP has not produced a governor, not produced any senators, not produced very few local government chairmen. So I could not join the APC. That was also the question. So that's why I joined the PDP.
Okay, so now in the PDP, what have you found? And I will tell you what is being rumored about the PDP. Yeah. Number one is that there are lots of people in the PDP who are being funded by the APC, and some of them are spoilers, and so on and so forth. Number two is that they are not really ready to fight, as it were, as a cohesive party for at least Lagos State. It's almost that there's a pact, and so on and so forth. Let me leave it at those two. They are similar, but slightly different. So what have you found the PDP? And talk to us about this so-called structure. And you also mentioned something, understanding the electorate. What does that exactly mean?
Yes. Okay. Let me first start with what I found in the PDP. I think that for a long time, the PDP was suffering from PTSD based on the death of or the murder of Engineer Funshaw Williams. You find that people that came afterwards would push so far and then pull back, you know. And I also find that because there are lots of leaders in the party that have, you know, gone once, twice, three times, in their minds, they cannot conceive of victory. And that's what happens to an old general that's fought the war several times. It becomes very difficult to conceal, to be able to see victory. But what I do know about the PDP is that the grassroots following is almost cult-like, in the sense that imagine the kind of people that are coming out every 4 years to vote, and they keep losing, but they keep coming out. It's a huge amount of people. And this, when we look at the numbers that come out in elections, we also have to be conscious of this level of rigging that happens in Lagos State. And still have those kind of huge populations coming out to vote is extremely significant. Now, when we talk about the people that are playing two sides or as spoilers can only exist in two major, and can only have a serious effect in two major ways. One, the candidate is not ready to do the work to win, because the candidate's role is to bring the party together as much as possible and reduce the risk exposure of any one single person. Now, if you do your work properly in a campaign season, no one person should be able to cause that much damage. But if you don't do your work properly, you find that the night to the election, 2 nights to the election, you take all the money and give it to one person. And that person then takes half of the money and puts it under his bed, or just flies out of the country or something like that. So these are factors that must be mitigated by any serious candidate. But the major thing that I believe is this: when the people decide that enough is enough and they come out to vote, you cannot rig that election. I've seen it happen in my election, in certain local governments where the people came out in mass and voted in favor of the PDP. As much as they tried to rig it, it was not possible. So rigging also only happens because of the significant voter apathy in Lagos, which is about 16%. We have over 6 million registered voters, barely 1 million plus come out to vote. And also it happens where and the other party is popular. So the main job now is to tap into the frustrations of negotiations, to put forward a vision that they can buy into and resonate to them, and to ensure them that there will be a social contract that centers them and puts them first.
Yeah, so you wanted to speak to structure and understanding the electorate. Have you already spoken to that? What do you mean by understanding the electorate? And what do you politicians keep calling structure, structure, structure? What is structure?
Okay, so the structure that we're talking about is your ESCO and the people that you have in every ward, in every local government. And this exists in and out of political season. It's something that is consistently there. It's not something that Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yes, it's consistently there. And these are people that are influential in their wards. These are people that are known by their people. They're people that have a voice, that can sell your mandates to the people around them. And when they are organized based on natural groups, like, I mean, in most churches, you have the youth group represented, the female group represented, the 40-year-olds represented. But you have the woman leader, you have the youth leader, you have the chairman, obviously, you have the secretary, organizing secretary. These people run the affairs of the party in that ward. And so that is the structure. So when you have posters, for instance, you don't have to go and post it all over Lagos. You just need to bring it to a center place, share it, and then everybody takes it to their wards and puts it out there. And this structure, sorry, just one last thing. The most important thing about structure is that on the day of election, these will be your agents. Right? We have over 13,000 polling units now in Lagos State. So you're going to need at least 2 people per polling unit. So you're looking at just north of about 30,000 people, based on, obviously, to 26,000, but then you also have a number of people that will be at the collation center. You have people that will be canvassers, that will be going and bringing people to the polling units and things like that. That is structure, right? Until the day where we have quality type of elections where nobody needs to guard or safeguard the electoral process, these are things that you need. You can score all the votes, but if nobody is there to protect it, you might as well have 0.
Okay, so we're looking at a Lagos that puts people first. Apparently, you ran first for what you may call chairman, then you ran for senatorial seat. Yeah. And now you're going for the big job. What are your chances? What are your chances within the PDP? What are your chances in the general election?
My chances are great in the PDP. Of all the candidates that are coming out, I'm the most recent to run. When I ran, I had more votes, the most votes in the state. I'm very fortunate. I come from a family that is from Lagos, and also my mother is Igbo as well. So there's a huge Igbo population that supports me and that takes me as, a champion. I'm also young. There's a push for youth in leadership. The NSAS experience that happened in Lagos, I played a part in. I was very active in it. So the party sees these things. They know the value of these things. They look at the numbers that I pulled in the last election, which was over 250,000. And that is even with rigging. So I think I have a very good chance to get the ticket. In terms of the gubernatorial, we have polls that have been commissioned. And last week, it was said that the report was Lagos blinks. I think for the first time, Lagos is leaning towards the PDP. This hasn't happened for a very long time. That's one factor. The second factor is the NURTW is quite divided. So that one group of people that torment everybody else will not necessarily be a factor in this next election, or will not behave in the typical way that they normally behave. Another reason is obviously the youth are extremely angry with how the whole NSAS thing was handled. The national failure of APC government is also going to rub off on the APC governments locally. And, you know, I think that people generally want a state or a government that puts them first. I think most people have had it up to here now. You have a situation where a lot of businesses are finding it very difficult to survive because diesel's at an all-time high. You have a situation with the security issue in Lagos where poverty has been weaponized. And you have all these agri just doing and undoing, and they're in collision with the government as well. So I think that people want something different. I truly believe that, and it's reflective in the polls that have been happening. And I think as we go into the elections, we're going to see a lot more of that. So I feel that as long as the PDP can put up a candidate that is a breath of fresh air, that's not the same of the same, people will get excited and people will come out to participate in the elections.
Right. So grassroots, how are you going to get your grassroots support? What's your strategy to win your party primaries, if you can disclose, or how are you sure you're going to be able to get your party primaries?
I've been in the party for 6 years now. And I've been an active member of the party. I have my structures in every ward in Lagos State. I have people that I have personal relationships with. I contested, my senatorial district is 10 local governments, it's half of Lagos, spanning all the way from Ikeja to Badagry. So I have personal relationships with each of those local government chairmen. And you find that the party administrators are pretty much the same people that are, if they are not here today, they are one faction or another. So it's the same people. I've built relationships with them. We do not just decamp or go quiet after the election. So in terms of grassroots support, the delegates are people that, sorry, I just comment to me off. The delegates are people that we know personally and we're working with. And you know, we're going around, we're selling our mandate, we're selling the benefits of having us as flag bearer. And I believe that the primaries will be in our favor.
So you are sure you're going to win the primary?
I'm certain. I will not be in.
Who else are you competing against for this primary?
There are five other aspirants. A number of them. I did the Ituah is contesting. I did Osumu is contesting. Jide Adiniro, Dakova, and Jimmy Kamal.
Sorry?
A gentleman called Jimmy Kamal.
Okay, are you sure you're going to beat all these people?
That's what we're working to do. I'm very confident. If not, I won't be in it. And you also have to understand that I've done this before.
So, you have well, maybe I shouldn't be asking you this question publicly, but I will ask you privately when we get to see a few things. So, if you do become governor of Lagos State, for the benefit of those of us who are Lagosians, what are you going to do differently? What will Lagos be expecting from you? What are you going to do differently?
I think the first thing will be to center the interests of the people. And I think people don't fully understand how impactful that is. This means that any job or any project will first center the interests of the people. So if we're building a ramp that's connecting Uzumba to Falomo Bridge, it's not going to cost 5 times the price as a ramp will cost in Kenya, right? Because you know that the people need 4 more ramps, not 1. When you're repairing roads in Ikoyi, You will not block off all the streets in Ikoyi because you started doing one road in one section of Ikoyi. You'll focus on the fact that you want to limit the inconvenience to people as much as possible. So you're going to be more systematic in your project delivery. Also, you'll consider that the kind of roads that are going to be built, you want roads that will last for 6, 7 years. Not every 2 years, you're going to come and inconvenience people all over and all over again. So this is what I mean by, in general, the first thing is to center the interests of the people and put the people's interests first. Another thing is transparency and accountability. The idea that you cannot get line by line item of Lagos State's expenditure for a state that prides itself in generating so much money from its residents is absurd. There must be a social contract and a social contract that's followed. And in that in itself, it takes on a life of its own because all of a sudden there's a lot of corruption that is then, put aside because now people have access to the accounting of the state, right? Another thing is to ensure that, and this goes back to what I said, centering needs of people. It's not normal for people to stay in traffic for 4 hours every day. It's not normal. It's madness. And we've normalized it. People are waking up at 4, 5 in the morning. They're not seeing their kids. They're coming back home late at night. They're not seeing their kids. And we are not understanding the kind of society that we are building in the next 10, 15 years with parents that it's not their fault, they're doing their best, but Lagos does not allow them to have that kind of relationship. So to solve that problem, one, you have to sort of decentralize Lagos. You need to open up a lot more of Lagos so that people are not traveling those kind of distances. We need to start to ensure and make it a law and reward businesses that do this, where people can work from home or work remotely. We need to, as opposed to trying to, get Uber to pay you more money, we should be working with Uber to make ride sharing more normalized, where the Uber in Lagos should be different from Uber anywhere else. It should be transformative in the sense that how can you normalize ride sharing? How can we be able to plan our day and you're reducing number of cars on the road as opposed to increasing it? And by the time you do these things, how can you then create alternatives so you can then start putting congestion charges in certain places, right? And then normalizing water transport, not just paying lip service to it. So if you normalize water transport, it reflects in the quality of jetties as you see them. It reflects in the kind of boats that will be on the water. It reflects in how you create a situation for people to park their cars adjacent to jetties so that more people can actually use this multimodal transport system. So these are things that I'm very passionate about. Transport, healthcare. As part of my campaign, I've already launched a micro health insurance plan, and we aim to cover about 1 million registered voters. 1 million registered voters. And it's interesting because micro health is something that, I'll walk through it. For each card per month, I had to pay 500 naira. Now, this allows people to have access to diagnostics. It allows people to buy drugs up to the worth of 2,000 naira per month. Now, that might seem small, but the idea is social engineering, where you want to reduce people just taking medicines by themselves or not getting any diagnostic tests done. And that way, reducing the amount of people that just are not properly treated. And then normalizing that idea that, if I'm sick, I should go get a diagnostic test done, right? And so that's what we've been doing. And the wonderful thing about it is how we're not partnering with hospitals, we partnered with local pharmacies. So when you activate it, they tell you the local pharmacy in your area closest to you that is partnered with you. And I say this because there's so much that can be done when you start to look at things at a micro level that can have huge impacts on the society at large. So transportation, healthcare, skill acquisition and skill capacity, especially for the fact that Lagos State is going to be home to the largest population. I mean, as Nigeria's population increases, the amount of young people that are going to be in Lagos that don't have jobs is a ticking time bomb that we're sitting on. So there must be a focus on getting people's skills and creating opportunities for those skills to be used. And I'm talking about, and trying to create a situation where Lagos is seen as a production capital as opposed to a consumption capital. Because that's the only way we'll create the kind of jobs that we need to get these people busy and keep them busy, and for them to be, profitable and active members of society. So those are some of the things. Once we get through this primary, my full manifesto will be put on my website and people can look at it and see where we're trying to take Lagos.
All right, very good. Let me take you to the federal.
Yes, sir.
What is PDP's plan for the federal? Who are they planning to field? And do they have any serious plans to win this election? And also, what are your thoughts on what is going on in APC right now, 27, or maybe by now 29, including Goodluck Jonathan, presidential candidates? Why would Goodluck Jonathan leave PDP and take a ticket or try to take a ticket in APC? What does that mean? He seemed to have been the symbol of PDP for many years, and he just walks away and picks up a ticket in APC. What kind of politics are you people really playing in Nigeria? Where the ethics, where the values, where's the systems? How do we know who to believe in and to trust what you say? The other day, a former governor in a state was abusing somebody and yapping him. 4 years later, the same person he was abusing is raising the person's hands and blessing the person. And the person he supported to become governor, I'm talking about Edo State, by the way, is yapping that person and saying the person has no educational qualifications. I mean, you people are confusing us. What do we believe? What do we do?
I think that let's start from, that's a very loaded question. Historically, from 1999.
I can't hear you properly.
Can you
hear me, sir? Can you hear me?
Put the mic nearer your mouth.
Can you hear me better
very
now,
spoken to start off with, and then.
Can you hear me better now, sir?
Hallelujah.
Okay. For the most part, I would say that from 1999, most of the serious people that meant well for Nigeria stayed out of politics. They left politics for the bad people. They left politics for the 419ers. They left politics for people with little scruples for what Nigeria should be or moving Nigeria forward. And that is the honest truth. You'll find that churches preach.
Go ahead, I'm listening.
They had no business in it. And, sorry, call was transforming. You had no business in it. So, and these people then went on to define what a politician should be. What is politics? How should a politician be? You'll be somewhere and you have all these thugs following a politician and they'll tell you this is politics. No. This is the politics that you tended to define it to be, right? If I was going to design what politics should be, that's definitely what I'll design. But to your question about PDP at the national level, the PDP finds itself in a difficult situation that is trying to solve. The good thing that we have, somebody said PDP and EPC are the same. I completely disagree. I feel that the PDP offers a democratic platform. It's not, no, but I mean, look at the APC. You have almost, like you said, 20-something people coming out for president. All of them know that they are not going to contest against each other. All of them know that Buhari is going to lift the hand up of one person. In their form, there's a withdrawal form that they also have to fill, right? I'm sure you know this. I'm sure you're aware of this. So all of them are hoping that the president will pick them and it will be a consensus. So the PDP at least allows you to go to the field. You believe you're popular, go and show your strength. So you're sure of a democratic experience. Now, what the situation is for us is that the PDP has in its DNA zoning, which is things that were in the south, they go to the north, things that were in north come to the south. Now, unfortunately, the person that really broke that thing was Goodluck Jonathan. Because after Obasanjo, it was agreed that power should go to the north. And there was a gentleman agreement that he will only do one term, which he broke. So the conversation now is that the north is still owed 4 years, according to some. Some will say that the people that are clamoring for power to go to the north should vicariously live through Buhari because they were all parts and parcel of the northern agenda that brought Buhari in. And that has been a predicament. And that is why you see different conversations on zoning. Should there be zoning? Should there not be zoning? The party has now decided to throw its ticket open. So anybody should contest for it. Now, what you can be assured of is that there will be a democratic primary. And that primary would reflect the interest, because the party itself is a microcosm of Nigeria as a whole, because you have the people that are going to vote are coming from all corners of Nigeria. Every local government will be represented there. So those that feel that power should go to the south will vote in that direction. Those that feel that it's about having a candidate that will win the election will vote in that direction. You know, so that is the PDP. Anybody that tells you now they know the direction that either the APC or PDP will go is a liar, according, in my opinion. Nobody at this point knows the direction of anything. I think that in the next 2 weeks it will become clearer. But even at that, we're going to figure it out when Buhari actually comes out and says this is his candidate, and the PDP, when we get on the field, then we'll be able to know and say, you know, this is the candidate that is going to be the flag bearer for our party. I think I've answered all your questions.
All right. Well, let's see how it goes. But are you therefore saying that unless you are in the PDP or the APC, you really can't win elections in Nigeria? And this issue of the possibilities of a third force or something is totally absorbed and it can't happen? Is that what you're saying? Or is that what Nigeria is saying?
That's what Nigeria is saying. That definitely is what Nigeria is saying.
That's what Nigeria is saying.
I don't think it's an accident that in most major developed democracies, there are two main parties. I don't think it's an accident at all. Now, that being said, if you have a group of serious people, and I mean very serious people, because, you know, a lot of people, especially the elite, they pay lip service to politics. You know, there are a lot of people that will tell you that they would donate to your campaign when you've gotten a ticket. You see, that's thinking backwards. They've not gotten it yet. At the moment you are waiting for candidates to emerge, you have left a whole process that only gives you the outputs of, I mean, there are 6 people, 1 person was selected. You had no say in that 1 person. You don't care whether that person reflects your values or their values. And then you later on go on to complain about the type of candidates that are emerging. So that's one thing. But I was going to say, if very serious people come together in whatever party outside of the APC or PDP, and they focus and say, you know what, we want to win a local government. We want to produce a House of Rep, we want to produce an assembly member, we want to produce a local government chairman. They can do it. I am certain of it. They can do it. It's been done before. They can do it. You have a CoOp Party Mushin with Takware that consistently delivered their candidates, right? So they're consistent. The problem is when a so-called third force comes out 2 years to the election and, does paper calculations of how they will get people and all of that, and they want to produce a president. I think that if you understand politics for what it is, and you understand what it takes to win a ward, talk less of what it takes to win a polling unit, talk less of what it takes to win a ward, you'll understand how serious this thing is, because it's a lot of work. It's not something you just wish will happen. No, it's a lot of work. Because the middle class that can truly make a difference, and when I mean middle class, I'm not saying it in terms of income or money stream. I'm talking about people that are upwardly mobile, people that can afford not to take 1,000 naira on the day of election, people that have the best ideas for what policy can move the country forward. If they decide to get involved, which they tend not to, and they are the custodians of democracy, but they've been very responsible for significant amount of years. Now, if they decide to get involved, it can truly change things in Nigeria. They truly can. So if that happens, then we can start looking at the local government. But to say you want to produce a president from a third force, something truly catastrophic has to happen in both parties. They must be fighting themselves to the bitter end for you to just be able to walk into it, because it will not be because of the work that you did. It will be because the two main elephants in the room are fighting to death. So it then allows for you to be able to walk into it. That's my opinion.
Well, people say that there's about voting population of Nigeria is 80 million. Only about 20 or 24 million votes. There's 60 million people who don't vote. Maybe the third force can appeal to those 60 million people, blah, blah, blah. Then again, even the PDP and the so-called APC, they too evolved from somewhere. They didn't drop from the sky. They did some work to come together and have this perception of being formidable. It was people that came together that formed these two parties. And I even know that sometimes people just borrow the name. You, as the candidate, has to spend almost all the money, do almost all the work, run up and down. In fact, sometimes create your own structure almost from start, because in some of these parties, you even have two structures, two factions. In Ogun State, for example, my two good friends are at war. They're both very good friends of mine. Dapo Abiodun, the present governor, Ibikuli Amosun, the former governor, former best friends. We're all friends together. And Ibikuli has his own structure all over the place. Dapo is building his own structure, has built his own structure all over the place, and so on and so forth. So sometimes you have two congresses going on at the same time, blah, 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 blah. And that happens almost in Ekiti. Something similar to that virtually happened also in the same APC. In Osun State, PDP, there's about 3 factions there. The one with Adeleke, the one with another guy, they have 2 congresses at the same time. They're both fighting one another, blah, blah, blah. So really, I think a lot of these so-called PDP, APC structures, a bit of a myth, a bit of a good PR sort of thing, because you find that everybody keeps, they almost have to recreate their own structures, and they're just borrowing the name.
Let me respond to that. I think that for me, that's almost wishful thinking. And I mean that it's wishful thinking, because I have these conversations, and when people are fighting because there's something to fight for, consensus is the hardest thing to build. It's extremely hard. And politics is extremely difficult in the sense that you are mixing with people that on a normal day have no business being in a room with. And all of you have to meet and make a mutual decision. And that's extremely difficult. Different value systems, different thought patterns, different visions of how things should be, different backgrounds, different exposures. It's a lot. Now, to build that consensus, right? And like someone just said, the stronger faction wins on the long run, and that's who then emerges as the candidate. Then afterwards, that person starts building that consensus again to unite the party so they can go into the election as a formidable unit. So politics is a contact sport. It's not a kumbaya party. We will disagree, but we would agree at a point, we'll disagree to agree again. And that's why in politics, they say there's no permanent enemy, there's no permanent friend, just permanent interest. So when you say that somebody was yapping somebody today and lifting his hand tomorrow, the people that are taking them very serious do not understand that concept of no permanent enemy, no permanent friend, just permanent interest. That's really what it is. We are in this thing because of interest. Now, ideally, we want to make sure that the interests are in the favor of the people. But everybody in politics is in politics for their own interests, and they will fight for it, and they will push for it. You have a third force, people coming together, they barely have any structure. You're trying to get them to form a consensus and put one candidate forward. And they barely can do that. You saw what happened in 2015, and in 2019, where you had Shore, you had Obi Ekwesili, you had a number of these people that were shining lights of this new political class, and they could not come together to form consensus. They could not come together behind one person. That says a lot. Because if you think about how that could not be achieved, and think about how people are achieving that in a party with thousands of people, you then start to respect the process. That's one. I read, somebody just said something, it will come back to me. That was actually quite interesting. I'll read it in the comments again. But yeah, so consensus building is a very difficult activity to do. And it's a contact sport, and people will disagree. The important thing is, the thing that the party has going for it is that there's something called party supremacy. Yes, I recall somebody wrote that everybody is more involved in politics than it is governance. And I think that there's a misunderstanding, because people equate politics and governance, and that's very false. Politics is the pathway to governance. For me, it's like an agbada that you wear, and when you get into the seat, you take it off. It's the only route to it. It's either you go to politics or you go down the barrel of a gun. So we're choosing politics. But politics really has nothing to do with governance. The great thing that politics gives you towards governance is empathy, because the political process humbles you. It brings you in touch with the people that you're supposed to serve. It makes you relate to people that you not normally would relate with. By the time you've toured all the wards or the local governments, it gives you a grasp of what people are dealing with, or it should give you a grasp of what people are dealing with, so you should be able to make better policies. So that's the politics side of it. But politics and governance are very, very different. But back to your question, I feel that a third force where people are serious about power, it's a lot of work. And a lot of these people in the third force, because you said that they did not just fall from the sky, they came from somewhere. Yes. And you will notice, if you track the room of the PDP, this goes all the way back to independence. It's the same group of people that have been reorganizing themselves and coming back in different fashions. It's the same people. The APC came out of some of these same parties. So truly, we have not really had a third force. We have not. The closest that we have come to would have been if Shore and all were able to come together and present one candidate. You know, we haven't had a third force. Even Accord Party, SDP, all these parties are sister parties of the major party. You know, so yeah.
You said sister parties.
Mm-hmm.
What really does that mean?
It means that the leaders, the leaders in the PDP or the major stakeholders have a strong say over these smaller parties. They're calling the shots as well. They are the plan B. They are the plan B. If they don't get the tickets in PDP or APC, they'll go and join the SDP or they'll go and join. So it's pretty much, I will call with my followers out of the APC to the SDP if I don't get my tickets in the APC. So they would emerge and you say they are a third force. Yes, at this point you'll find there is a sister party to the PDP, or in this most recent manifestation to the APC. We'll see that very clearly in the next 2 weeks.
Are you serious?
Yes.
That is very frightening. Okay, let's open the floor for questions. And I'll ask Pastor Sonny to please take the question and answer session so that we can drive it. So if there's anybody who has any questions, they should please indicate so that we can see what to do. So Mr. Rhodes-Vivour has said that it's unlikely that in Nigeria we will get a third force. Every one of us should just please try and join either the PDP or the APC as it were. So Gbadebo, having said that, are we ever going to get good governance in Nigeria? Because you yourself said that a lot of these parties now, both these parties, is full of a lot of bad boys. Is Gbadebo one of the bad boys, or are you the only good boy in the party? You know, so if it's full of bad boys and they've cornered the party and they've cornered all the money, almost our money, and they're using that money to chase good people out of the party, what do we do? What do we do?
Okay, so I feel that we need to start to look at politics like chess. You need to have...
To look at politics like what?
Like chess.
Chess, okay.
Yes. And that's what Nigerians, or I'll say Southerners, because Northerners have a very good understanding of this concept. You see, you want to have your players on the table to push your interests. I'll give you an example. Recently, the government banned Twitter, the government banned crypto. It's fair to describe the government as anti-business. But then you'll find young businessmen, especially in tech, they're not active in getting people that reflect their values and their ideas as ticket bearers. They don't. They just wait for the party to throw up somebody and they deal with that. I mean, even the lobbying that they're supposed to do, not really doing it. They feel that you cannot innovate your way out of bad policy. You cannot Niger-proof yourself from bad governance. You can try, and you'll get away with it for some time. But if you started with 1 million in your account 2, 3 years ago, or 5 years ago, when it was what, the equivalent of, I don't know, $4,000, and now it's the equivalent of $2,000, there's only so much you can Niger-proof yourself from bad governance. So I feel that a lot more people need to get involved. You cannot leave politics to politicians. You need to get involved, join a political party, become an administrator, even just at your ward level. So you can then say, this is the candidate that will be good for Nigeria, and I'm going to vote for him to emerge as the candidate. Right? That's the first thing. 2, volunteer for campaigns. You're passionate about somebody, you feel that this person reflects your values, your ideals, get involved in their campaign. Even if you're just printing caps, t-shirts, posters, telling your friends, telling your relations to vote for this person, these things go a long way. Another thing is crowdfunding. Nigerians have not gotten into, and I understand that, the idea of funding candidates and funding elections. So then you have situations where you have to be this huge money bag to get into politics and to fund elections. But somehow, people expect that a politician will rise to power off the back of buying votes without their participation, significant voter apathy, and then prioritize their interests. It's almost like Nigerians want, I don't know, even Jesus, I mean, you have to do work. You know, you have to do work for God to answer you. Yes, there's grace, but there are things that are expected of you. Nigerians want to be irresponsible, but reap the reward of good governance. It's actually quite ridiculous when you think about it. They don't want to play any part. They don't want to get involved. They feel that getting registered to vote, they're doing the candidate a favor. Or somehow they expect that candidate to prioritize their interests. Why? People are bringing out billions to spend on election. They're forcing you to come out and vote. They will just get into position, make more money, because they believe they'll just buy their way in another time. So that's what needs to change. Democracy is a two-way street. People have a say, politicians have a say. And we must remember that the politician would always adapt and reflect the needs of the serious people in society. If people in society come out and say, you know what, we want somebody that has a good manifesto. We're not interested in how much you're sharing, which rice you're sharing, or your 500 now on election day. I like that person because the manifesto makes sense. You will find that the parties will throw up the most brilliant politicians. If people are saying that you have to have thugs to win election, you have to be an area boy, you'll find the party will throw that up. The party would reflect, because the party is listening, the party wants to win an election. So the party would reflect the people that they think will win an election. And they're listening to people that are taking elections seriously. And you're finding that these are people that look at their voters' cards as something that can give them a harvest every 4 years. These are people that don't care too much about vision or manifestos, just about how much money you can share on that day. And that's a problem that has to change. That has to be solved, actually. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody, Phyllis Goody says on Nigerian journalists plays money politics, and it's hard to get on the stage.
I'm sorry, sir. It's not that hard though. Because the moment, see, the population of educated people that can afford not to take 1,000 naira, yeah, in Lagos State, for example, is way more than people that must take that money on that day. It's a lot more. And I've seen it happen. So I'm not just talking. I've seen local governments that they prioritize putting their candidate and ensuring that the candidate wins. Whatever APC tried to do that day, it failed. It failed. So when people take things seriously, everybody will sit up. It's money politics because people leave only the hungry people to come out and participate in politics. So we have to play our part. Everybody has played their part. You know, there are millions of people on Twitter that will be talking about the problems of Nigeria from morning to night. To get them to get the voters' card is a problem. You know? So yeah.
Right. Anybody with any questions? It's looking as though this is a question-free day. I think maybe everybody is so satisfied with what you have said that
I hope
maybe
so.
They are all planning to vote for you. Okay,
people are raising their hands.
Anthony Ugebo wants to ask a question. Sonny, please take over. You may have a few questions you want to ask yourself, but Anthony, please unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay. Yes. Good afternoon, everybody. So, yeah, well done. And good luck to you. So, I just want to have a comment, possibly a question. The issue of Jonathan, if anybody knows him, they should advise him to just stay where he is. You know, he brought us to this point by being very uninspiring. You know, I mean, they take Nigerian people like slaves. Somebody who was totally devastated with abuse most of the abuse he got were deserved. Now, because of the way Nigeria is, he has the nerve to say he wants to show, give us a break. The hell is going on? So that is Jonathan. He will be totally, they want to destroy him. Those who are playing the game of let him come for one term so the power goes back to the north. Since when did they apologize to Jonathan for all the insults they rained on him? So that's that one. So he should be wise enough to behave himself in his last years on the planet and just stay where the hell he's at. That's okay. Now, let's get on to the issue of what you said about participation. I totally agree with you. The youth, technology, I have a saying that after the creator, technology is the next most important thing. The youth, they're not using technology. Technology does wonders. It's like what we have here with the Black Lives Matter in the United States. It started by a few people here and there. It's gone global. So the youth should use technology in whatever way they can to emancipate themselves. They have the numbers. But unfortunately, our culture, with respect to Rankadede, Alaji, big man, Obi Oba, or this big man syndrome, our culture has some negative parts of it. Where when somebody says something as an elder, even if the elder is retarded, we have to follow. So that is part of the issue there. So that's that. The last thing, the question I want to ask you is this. In my research, because I've looked into Nigeria passionately to see what's going on, the country needs to be restructured. A restructuring is not about, say, I want somebody to be hungry or I want somebody to get ahead or something. That's not what it is. The restructuring, if Nigeria, as we know from its birth, we are different civilizations. No doubt about it. How many Nigerians can speak 7 languages? And if you can't speak a language, you don't know the civilization of that language, of those people. So restructuring means people live and empower themselves, control themselves, decentralize Abuja. People live in their own zones, wherever they are, state-wise or whatever, like it was when Ahmadu Bello was there, Bafemi Awolowo was there, and Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe was there. We cannot be smarter than those people. So what do you think about restructuring, as a core problem? Because to me, unless we restructure, decentralize, Nigeria is going nowhere. It's obvious. I'm an engineer. It's going nowhere. I can see it in a million years because the restructuring is like the human body. It's restructured. You cannot have the eye do what the leg does or the nose do what the ear does or something. So that way, the entire body as a federal unit is functioning properly. So that is what I'm trying to ask you now. What do you think about restructuring? How does that impact your agenda with respect to how Nigeria is? Thank you very much. I'm sorry I took some time.
Yes. Restructuring is...
Okay, so you just hold on. Let's take the questions.
Okay.
1 or 2 more. We'll take David Henshaw and then Kofu Kuka, just 3, and then you can respond to them. Please, I hope you noted down the questions.
Yes, I did.
Okay, great, thanks. David Henshaw, unmute yourself and ask your question. David?
Okay. Yeah, good evening. And thank you for your nice presentation. Now, my question is, I'm looking after the election, and let us assume and prayerfully you have won the election. Now, there are 2, shall I say, roadblocks that may affect your efficient administration of the state. One is the State House of Assembly, and second is the civil service. How do you intend to get those 2 structures under your control if you win the election? Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. Powerful questions. Questions I had planned to ask you, but now that David has asked. Kofu Kuka, you can unmute yourself and ask.
Good evening, Gbadebo. I
Good
commend you for going into politics as a young man. We need more like you. My questions are twofold. The first one has to do with health. I heard you when you said you've already started a health program, but the last time I was in Lagos, and I mentioned some areas, I noticed some environmental challenges to health maintenance. The first one is the sewer and water. Many places that I visited don't have clean water. Some places, you take a walk, even in Lekki, you can smell the gutter clogged and smelly and full of all kinds of rotten things. I think these kind of things mitigates against good health. I also noticed, I think it's in the Ojodu area, there were thousands and thousands of shops and buildings right under the major power line. I'm not just talking of just some little power lines, huge power lines that people live under or have their shops under. I wonder how you'll be able to help in those areas if you become the governor of Lagos. The second one has to do with education, and I apologize if I've missed your statement on education. I understand Lagos has quite a good number. I don't remember the exact figure, but a lot of children out of school, and I would like to know your plan to reduce that number or bring it to zero if you become the governor of Lagos State. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sister Koofs. Very good and powerful question. I think the number out of school children is about 2 million for Lagos. Some stats I read, so that's it. Let's take Adeswa Osime last, and then Gbadebo, you can take all the questions. I hope you are noting them down, sir.
Auntie Kofo, I like your garden. Where in the world are you? I love that garden. Can I have some of it?
Pastor, yes, you can. You visited my brother last month, but you didn't visit me.
Where?
I'm in Maryland, Pastor.
Okay. So I'm coming to get some of that garden, okay? Beautiful.
Yeah, it's really beautiful. I was admiring it also. All
Thank
right.
you.
Well done. Adeswa Osime.
Yes, please. My question's actually on the chat. There are two questions there. But if you want me to take the first one, with the second one is the young children, some maybe 9, 10, 15-year-old. How are we, boys and girls? They're homeless, they don't have jobs, they're migrants, more or less. How can they be handled? How would you tend to handle those? How do you want to handle those? How do you want to get them off the streets or empower them or get them into school? That's one. The second one is all the old cronies, people who are addicts, drug addicts, they are known. Those who are alcohol dependent, those who have been indicted one way or the other, and those who are above 65. How can we get them to step aside? Can we not have a say in the people that govern us? Can we not have some criteria or something to say, okay, these are the people qualified, to govern or to go for elective position? That's what I have to say. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. Gbadebo, you can take a shot at the questions now. And just to add something to Adeswa's question, talking about the miscreants on the streets. Every part of Lagos you go to, there are keke and Okada riders, mostly from a certain part of the country. They are homeless, they live in abandoned buildings, they live in shacks, and they are in their thousands, if not millions. Huge security risk. So add that to the mix and tell us exactly what you're going to do. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so let's start with restructuring. I believe that restructuring is the only way we can truly move Nigeria forward. Like you actually noted and you said, the National Assembly made some significant moves in that, even though it's incremental. The kind of bills that were passed the past couple of months, like the same time where the electronic transmission of votes, the electoral bill was passed, adding things to the legislative list from the executive, power generation, state police. These are things that are key in developing Nigeria as a whole. There's no reason why I should be looking to Abuja to determine my education policy, or Abuja inhibiting my capacity to generate power. So restructuring is something I fundamentally believe in. I do not believe that Nigeria as it currently is constituted is sustainable or is feasible in any way, shape, or form. It's extremely inefficient. Those are my thoughts on that. The second question bordered on the State House of Assembly and civil service. I think the State House of Assembly is more of a political action, right? You cannot emerge governor if you don't also win your state assembly seats. It's not possible. You have to win a significant majority to be able to emerge as governor in the state. So by default, you should have more state assembly members that are loyal to you than the now opposition party when one emerges as governor. You also need to maintain a solid relationship with them. I recall that in 2015, the PDP had almost 6 or 7 state assembly members, and we lost all of them but one, because obviously they were enticed, they were pressured, and things like that, and they all decamped. So it's important to have a very good rapport with your assembly members. And it's not so much, I feel that people follow leaders that are not only honorable, but lead by example. You know, if you want people to put people first, you have to show that you're putting people first. I think that we saw this with Governor Fashola when, you know, he was reputed to wait in traffic and not use his sirens and attack people that would go on the BRT lanes. Those things endeared him to a lot of people. And regardless of, I'm not here as his champion. I'm just saying in this particular instance, he showed empathy. And people tend to follow that. People tend to appreciate leadership that shows that. So I feel that the moment you do that, your civil service will have to sit up because you're going to lead by example. There needs to be a significant reformation of the civil service because that system has existed very stoically for the last 20 years. And there's a way that they do things. And the way they do things is not necessarily in the interest of Lagos as a whole. It's in the interest of power brokers and people that are in the corridors of power in Alausa, and that needs to change. So there'll be a lot of reformation work with the civil service, increasing their pay so they also feel that, you know, they're valued and can also be more pliable to doing things differently. The next question talked about drainage, good health, sewer and water systems. First, the supply of water is actually very contradictory. That Lagos is supplied by water, but it barely provides water to anybody. And this needs to change. There have been loans that have been taken from the World Bank that have not really been accounted for the provision of water, and that did not happen. Instead, there was a period where we're trying to tax people for sinking boreholes. The audacity of that is just befolding to me. But these are things that need to change. Now, one idea for sewers, especially gutters in front of people, is that I feel that there needs to be a program where people take charge of the gutters in front of them. And the government monitors that to ensure that you are not blocking canals. And this also then ties into the flood system of Lagos, or the flood prevention system of Lagos, where if there is a penalty for the gutter in front of your house or your business being, you know, full of litter or trash, then everybody takes responsibility for the part in front of their fence. And then the government then manages the places where all these waters collect and make sure it's clean and it's covered and it's properly handled. Then we can actually start to have a proper drainage system. But when you have a situation where the local government does very funded, comes every 3-4 months to dig the gutters and to make sure things are flowing, or every 6 months, then we'll just keep doing things the same way, expecting different results. I think the next question talks about power lines and people living on the power lines and the quality of life generally in Lagos. Obviously, we understand the land pressures in Lagos. We understand how people are displaced consistently by the government in partnership with developers. We understand how there's no real program for affordable housing. Even when the government says that they're going to do it, you find that they've sold all these properties among themselves and then they start renting and selling it out at the prices that are definitely nothing close to affordable. And this is where transparency and accountability comes in. If we're doing an affordable housing project and people enter it similar to a lottery, right, where it's transparent, you enter into it and it's transparent, you have won this thing, you are getting it. Nobody in the Ministry of Housing is going to have the first right of refusal before you. And then you also create a situation that takes you back to the quality of governance that Alhaji Jakande did, which is he limited the value of land to ensure that the value of the property was actually at an affordable price. And he ensured that it got to the people that needed it, right? And that was a governor that put people first. And you see it in the quality of his delivery, healthcare, housing, education, right? These were things that you can see what happens when a person puts people first. And that's what we're trying to get back to. And it also, so in terms of planning, people living on the power lines and things, it's one thing to just drive people out. There's another thing to give people alternatives. And I feel that the more we give people alternatives, the more we plan around poverty, as opposed to excluding poverty, the better our society will be. And then you spoke about education. Education is something I'm very, very passionate about. I feel that our education system needs to start to create producers as opposed to consumers. You have a lot of people going to school in the hope that they will come out and they'll be able to afford to buy certain things, as opposed to coming out of school, having the skills to make things and produce things and employ people. And that needs to change. And it's a mentality that comes from your education system. So for me, as part of our manifesto, we also have after-school programs that ensure that children start to have a good idea of how things are made. We celebrate making of things, and we have more practical understanding in learning. I remember when I was still in school in Nigeria, we had to memorize so many things. We had to cram, there was no real physical understanding of the things that you knew. Even in chemistry class, they will tell you when iron mixes with HCl, this is what will happen. But nobody ever saw that experiment, So education needs to be more practical, more hands-on. And I remember like when I was at MIT, the focus was always mind and hand. You must make. You are coming here to make, to change things, to transform things. It's not enough to just have theoretical knowledge. And that's where I believe our education system needs to go, because right now we're being left behind. And it's only going to get worse and worse, especially with AI learning, type of education that's coming into play in Asia, in Scandinavia, and even in Europe. So we need to really step that up in terms of practical knowledge that is very valuable to lifting you up out of poverty in your environment, right? For instance, a person that lives in places in the cashew belt, let's just use that cashew belt that spans from Kogi to Enugu and parts of Nasarawa. You should understand about cashew. You should understand the things that can be made out of cashew, many different things, from paint remover to the chemicals associated with it, things like that. You should have practical knowledge of things that are in your environment. In Lagos, for instance, waste. Waste is one of our biggest resources that we just leave to pretty much waste. We should understand the waste value chain. It should be part of your education, so you know how you can key into that and make, whether you're converting waste to wealth, converting waste to energy, recycling, creating fertilizers from it. these should be unique parts of your education process. So I'm giving these examples to show practical ways in which people can have, more practical education as opposed to just cramming things and learning subjects that don't really have practical keys to giving you success in life. I think the other question, so I've talked about after school programs. We talked, the lady said, how do you have a say in the older people coming out for offices or not coming out for offices, and drunkards or drug dealers or all of that? I know Bubamawa actually recommended that blood tests are done during the screening of candidates, which is a welcome idea. You want to know that people that are at the helm of affairs are chemically balanced mentally, and are not under the influence of any heavy drugs. But at the same time, I think the bigger issue is you need to get involved. You need to get involved in politics. You need to have a say in which candidate emerges. You need to start getting involved. If not, you'll just be left with the people that the party decide, people you decide to represent them. And regardless of what you feel about any particular person, whether it's 65 and is a crackhead or a cocaine addict, there are people that voted for him or her. There are people that believe in them, right? So you just need to get people that represent your interests and your values and vote for those people, whether it's from grassroots level or during elections. And I think the final question related to you have drug addict, miscreants, people that politicians tend to use to do their dirty jobs, They were seen during the NSAS protest, for instance, at a Lausa, right in front of the governor's office, came down in BRT buses, start chasing peaceful protesters away with matches in their hands. It's not in the interest of the current political status quo to lift them out of poverty. In fact, the poverty is weaponized. You will find that drugs that flow into some of these communities are actually done intentionally, because when you can keep somebody under control, you can get them to do whatever you want them to do. And their value of life does not really change. So in my manifesto, I have a concept called the Commonwealth of Lagos. Now let's look at that manifesto through the lens of the NERTW. The NERTW generates about 126 billion every year. That's the IGR of about 3 states in Nigeria combined. Now these monies are unaccounted for. They usually just filter away to the top members of their organization, probably some of their cohorts in government. There are no health benefits for NERTW members. There are no education grants for their children or their family. So pretty much they live in poverty. Some of them filter up based on the violence and aggression that they do in society. And they are rewarded by getting to the top. So the more violent you are, the more you are loyal to the government, you get to the top like the MC Ulomos of this world. But the thousands of people still stay below the poverty line. And that needs to change. These monies need to start to have an effect on those people on the ground. And that way start to socially engineer the children that come out of these people, the society that they dwell in. For instance, if you have access to healthcare, or your children have access to education based on you being an NERTW member and based on the taxes that you generate, then all of a sudden you have educated children that come back and question what you are doing with your time as a father. And these are subtle ways that you can start to change things and you can start to make people feel that their life has value and there are certain things that they need not do. And you then start to create it was done in China, start to social engineer people out of poverty as well. So these are some of the things that I'll be looking to rehabilitate people that are on drugs, create systems where people can get skills for food, and then start to create an enabling environment that businesses can come in and that they're tapping into some of the highest skilled people in Africa. And that's the vision for Lagos. I think I've covered all those questions. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Gbadebo. We have one more question, then I'll ask you just a couple of questions before we close. Benjamin Omeza. Thank you. Benjamin Omeza, unmute yourself and ask your question.
Okay, good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Just a quick question. It's about the economy. How do you hope to strengthen the informal sector? Because Lagos is a land of opportunities. How do you hope to strengthen the informal sector to be more productive and to improve the GDP of Lagos? Thank you, sir.
That was a beautiful question. Can I go into that?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. And this goes, and I'm excited about this question because it ties also into the Commonwealth of Lagos concept that we've developed. The informal sector is one of the major employers of labor in Lagos State, and they also receive the brunt of just the callousness of government. So you have an Iyaloja that is just demanding and taxing people and squeezing them, multiple taxations without really any benefit to it. You don't see the Iyaloja generating money and building a creche in a market for young women that just had children, for those children to be taken care of, or a primary school being built in the area so that your children can, be close to you while they're getting quality education as well. So my focus on the informal sector is to try and create incentives for the taxes that they're already paying, so they feel a direct benefit of these monies that are being taken from them, and then also create an enabling environment for them to thrive, for them to get bigger, to be more successful. As part of the Commonwealth of Lagos, ingrained in it is a credit monitoring system where you have access to credit, small at first, and based on your credit profile, that is increased over time, right? And that then allows you to be able to expand your businesses. So the idea is you expand, we're not trying to stifle your business. We want you to grow because we believe that when you grow, you can actually pay more in taxes because you see the direct benefit, right? So, I mean, like places in Scandinavia that pay 40% in taxes, there's very little complaint because the government works for them. They have so much benefits from there. So situations where also creating fairness, you can get the places, for instance, I went to talk to some people in Orili, and we're complaining that, Yoruba people live in this, have businesses here, and Igbo people have businesses here, and that they're constantly overtaxing the Igbo people over the Yoruba people because they feel that, Igbo people in Lagos, things like that need to change. You want a situation where people can thrive in their business and it's not, ethnically motivated to stifle them, right? Because they're paying taxes. I mean, we keep screaming about our IGR, which really, we're still a very poor state. We talk about 45 billion every month. That's just $70 million. And when you look at the population of Lagos, that's barely $3 per person. For the kind of infrastructure you need to build for 20 million people, you have a lot more to do. We have a lot more to do to expand that tax net. And you can only do that when people feel that there's value to paying taxes. It's not just going to somebody that just flips the train away. So yes, for me, the informal sector is extremely important for us in Lagos. We intend to, I don't want to use the word formalize them, but to bring them into the system where they can be counted, where we know what their needs are, and we have a data-driven approach to help them, be more successful.
All right. Thank you very much, Gbadebo. You just touched a bit on the IGR. You said 45 million is what Lagos generates monthly.
Billion.
45 million is a paltry sum compared to the number of people in Lagos.
Yes.
In your view, what do you think the IGR should be? I mean, you've mentioned a lot of area of leakages because quite honestly, if you look at the NURTW, the various markets, the revenues they collect, maybe it should be more than that. And then the system of collecting the tax, we understand that somebody is still taking commission on all the tax collected in Lagos. What are you going to do about that? Yeah.
So that needs to go. right? We are in dire need of money. Somebody cannot just sit down and be getting 3 billion every month because almost 20 years ago, they created an innovative system to help collect tax, right? Which is really autonomous at this moment. We need to improve our education system. We need to look at primary schools, see a primary school that makes a child excited to learn, right? These are things that we need to have. Our healthcare system. Since I got into politics, at last count, I know about 87 people that died because one, there was no oxygen in the hospital, there was no light, or just these people did not need to die. Nigeria or Lagos killed them, in my opinion, right? And these are things that need to be checked. So for me, the IGR needs to be increased to about 200 billion, and then we know that we're doing something, and needs to be increased based on accountability as well. We cannot keep screaming, we are making all this money, but there's no social contract. There's no accountability to people that are paying these taxes. People must feel, they must feel the benefits of this tax that they're paying. And not only that, I must be able to come out as a governor and say that we did a ramp and we built a bridge, and we got a very good deal. The price points we're doing is just maybe 10% off in Ethiopia, 10% off in Ghana, or we're doing it for less than they did it in Ghana or less than they did it in Ethiopia. Not you're doing it 4 times the price. So I'm looking at it and I feel we could have had 4 ramps. We could have had 4 flyover bridges as opposed to this one that we're clapping for. And that's the level of transparency and accountability that we're trying to get to with Lagos State.
Okay, thank you very much. We have one more question from Tunde. But just before Tunde comes up, let me ask you this, and this is a very big issue that a lot of people are facing in Lagos. And as the next governor of Lagos State, what are you going to do about the problem of Omonile and the issue? Did you get me?
Yes, Omonile.
Omonile, the issue of land acquisition, and then title deeds. A lot of people have purchased land. They are pursuing their title deed, C of O, for the last couple of years. They can't get it. Then Omonile will not let you get the land in peace. What are you going to do about that?
You see, and this goes, that's why when I started, notice I said accountability and transparency. And I think a lot of people, they don't fully understand how wide that is. You see, why should you have to take so long to get your deeds? Why? Why can't it be automated? Today, I'm an architect. When I want to do my site plan, we have the one from the government or a surveyor. We have the one that we get from Google Maps, and we match it, right? There's so many innovative ways where I know people that have been doing this for years, where based on drone footage and everything, you can mark out land. You can automate these things, but they're not automated because the bureaucratic system needs to thrive on you coming, you complaining, you begging, so you're paying more people and paying people and paying people and paying people. And these are things that get in the way of creating a convenient or a conducive business environment. So we want to automate that as much as possible. The idea of Omonile, I'm working on a project in Surulere now. It's just a small renovation. And these area boys came, it's in a very gated estate. And these area boys came and said, we have to give them something for the boys, right? And I'm talking to them, and all my workers had already down their tools because it's a system, right? It's what they know, because everywhere they go, this is what happens. The boys come do a shakedown, and then everybody downs their tools. And when you pay them, then the workers start working again. But what was so interesting is that shortly after, somebody from Alausa came with a different charge. And guess who was the one that called those people from Alausa? It was those same boys. So they work hand in hand. Now, the way they behave is a reflection of the way the government behaves. Because they are empowered by them. They're their strong hand. in society. So it's a working relationship that's fully formed. And when we are in power, when we are in position, all that is going to change. Because there'll be, it's not in my interest, I don't want to weaponize poverty.
So, Gbadebo, for instance, when you are in power, how long will it take us to get a CFO or a governor's consent, for example?
We should be looking at not more than 6 months.
Not more than 6 months.
We should not be looking at more than 6 months, because it should be automated. See, when you are not a thief and you don't want to steal, right? Things will get done very quickly.
Yeah.
The problem is when you are a thief and you want to steal and you want to just squeeze money out of people, then you create barriers, because that then justifies you taking money.
Then what will you do about your moneyless and the area boys that harass you when you want to build and all those kind of stuff?
If there's a zero tolerance in government for that, right, then you have the security operative working against that. It's that simple. See, these area boys, they are more organized than the middle class. So there is a guy that's in charge of the Mushin axis as they're entering into Yaba. There's a guy in charge of Alimosho. There's a guy in charge of Ojo. Me, as young as I am, I can make a call and have all these people assemble, and I'm not governor yet. And we have a conversation about how Lagos is going to move forward. Everything that is happening today is permitted. And that's why I gave you the example of what happened at my site in Surulere, where the area boys call people from Alauta to come, right? So it goes hand in hand. So it's like the anecdote of the fish, the rotten head determines how the body will be.
All right, let's take these two questions from Tunde Akpelogun and Ademola. Then we'll begin to wrap up and I'll ask you the final questions. So Tunde Akpelogun, if you can unmute yourself, ask your question. Then after that, Ademola, we'll take those two questions, then we wrap it up and call it a day.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Sonny.
Yeah.
Mr. Gbadebo.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, if I've been observing you as you speak along, it appears you are one of those people who bears Yoruba name, Hausa name as your first and middle names, and then you have a surname which nobody can identify with Yoruba land. Assuming that the Lagos is composed of over 80% Yoruba people, how do you expect to win the governorship of Lagos State? Is it because you are under PDP, or anybody can join APC and then think that they can just, throw that to the people and say, well, I am Gbadebo, I am Yoruba because I bear Yoruba name? Thank you.
Okay.
Just hold on. Let Ademola ask the next question, then you combine the two together. Ademola, ask your question, unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hello. Go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah,
we can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, wonderful.
You've muted yourself again.
Ademola, unmute yourself. Okay.
Lagos historically has had some systemic issues. I'm elated by what your manifesto states that you want to do, but how are you going to overcome the machinery of APC that is so entrenched, and especially entrenched with all the types of impediments that they put in place for opponents in the system when it comes down to this race? That's my question.
Okay. Good. So can I answer now?
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Okay, so the first question, I'm not sure, Mr. Anibi, that's a very, very strange question to me. We're an indigenous Lagos family. I descend from Justice S.B. Rhodes, who was the second ever Nigerian judge in Nigeria. We have produced judges we have produced judges in Nigeria representing Lagos from independence for every generation. I think 2 Supreme Court judges and 1 other judge. So it's very strange to me that someone would question my Yorubaness or the fact that I'm an indigenous Lagosian. I find that extremely strange. But my father is from Lagos. I was born in Lagos Island. So was my father. My mother is from Abia State. Yeah. In relation to people voting for you because you are Yoruba, well, my name is Gbadebo, truly. So my father's name was Olawale. His father before him was Akinwumi. So I really don't know how I'm going to answer that question. I mean, if you look more into Lagos history or you talk to the Oba of Lagos, I'm sure he will brief you on the family I come from. Aside from that, we intend to work with the people, right? We intend to work with the people and just sell our manifesto and show how we'll take their interests more at heart, pushing forward and centering their interests and, making Lagos work for everybody.
Oh, it's from Palliative for Davidson.
And then to the second question about the challenges of winning an election. Ajimobi was the first governor in Oyo State to ever go for 2 terms. Yeah, he was the first governor. And somehow the people rose and said that his candidate is not going to emerge and he is not going to go to Senate. The people decided. And I tell people that when people come out and they decide that they want to change, there's no machinery that can stop them. In my last election, we won in 4 local governments. And I know the efforts that the APC tried there to do. And they could not because the people took the election seriously and they came out in mass and they voted. And that's what it's going to come down to. There are many things that are going to change in this election cycle. And a lot of real reflections of the people's wishes are going to be seen. A major thing is the electronic transmission of voting, which will allow for results to be transmitted directly from the polling units to the INEC server. I served on the committee for the Ondo election, and we collated our results live from the INEC server. So I know it's a system that works. That in itself is going to take out all the manipulation and magic that happens at night after election, This is an interesting question that are you this gentle? Area boys. I ran in the toughest part of Lagos. Alimosho, Agigi, Mushin, Jeremy, Feludun, Oshodi, Solo. Those were the places I ran. And I had significant votes, and I even won some of those local governments. So my aspiration in life is to be all things to all men. I'm not going to be talking like an agbero on a call like this, right? But if I'm in my grassroots mode, I'm in my grassroots mode. And people always also, people overhype area boys in the sense that these people are maybe 2% of the population, any local government. They're 2%. There's one really bad boy. And then he has 10 or 15 people in his gang. But in that local government, there are about 2 million people. So we need to understand. So even like in the 2019 elections where we televised what happened in Oshodi, Solo, in Okota, where people came and snatched the ballot box and burned people's votes, that happened at 4 polling units. And we have over 10,000 polling units. So that was just 4 polling units. So we need to understand that if people come out to vote, people get involved, people participate, things are going to be very, very different. I know this for a fact. I've seen it happen. And area boys or not, the people are way more than any of these people, are way more than any people in political parties, are way more than area boys, are way more than any machinery that can be put out to distort their wishes.
Thank you very much, Gbadebo. I think our time is fast spent. We would like to ask you for your contact details. If you have a website where people can go and check you out, how they can reach you, how they can be part of this program, how they can be part of what you are doing. You can state it, and maybe a member of your team, if they're on the platform, can drop it in the chat box.
It's really just simple. GRV Lagos. What? On all social media. GRV. My name is Gbadebo Rhodes-Vivour. GRV Lagos on all social media.
Okay, GRV Lagos on all social media. So that's how you can reach Gbadebo on all social media. And if you want to be part of this, you can reach him. We're sorry we can't take more questions. I apologize to Auntie Ifeinwa Iwakwesi and Horochi Organ. Very, very sorry. We're not able to take your questions. But Gbadebo,
sorry, anybody that has any further questions, just send me a message. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions.
All right. They can reach you on those platforms. So any final words before we go? And should you become the governor of Lagos State, what will be your first action, your first day in office? What are you going to do?
Well, final words. Get involved. I can't say this enough. We need to get involved, especially the middle class, educated people, people that believe in dignity of labor, people that have any idea or vision of what they would like Lagos to be, people that have ideas of solutions. Get involved, get registered. Even if you're not registered, talk to your friends, talk to family that are registered. There's 6 million registered people to vote in Lagos. Let's even say 2 million of those who have not collected their voters card. That leaves 4 million people. Less than 1 million people are participating in elections. That means the rest of the 3 million people are sitting at home. These people are your uncles, they're your aunties, they're your friends, they're your cousins, they're your nephews. Tell them to get involved, to participate, to vote, right? The moment that there's no more voter apathy and the politician sees that huge amounts of people are taking this thing seriously, their behavior will immediately change because they will know that they did not buy that election, right? And then we start to create a situation where people start to become servant leaders and become accountable and responsible to the people that they're supposed to be leading. And that's the only way we can move Nigeria forward. In relation to the first 100 days, the main focus will be on civil service reformation. It will be on, for me, Badagry division has been completely neglected by this government for the past couple of years. There has to be a lot of work on infrastructure there, especially roads, schools. There are local governments in Ojo that don't have any primary schools. Children have to walk for hours to get to school. In Ijegun and places like that, we need to address these things immediately. So those will be my focus in the first 100 days. And then starting to put into play the Commonwealth of Lagos to ensure that people are not left behind. And Lagos is not a state that only cares about the interests of the few. It must work for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we wish you all the best in your desire to clinch your party's ticket. We pray that you get it and that Lagos becomes a better place because of your reign and tenure. We want to thank everybody that came on the platform today. We ask that go to our YouTube page. If you are watching on the YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel, African Leadership Group, Africa Leadership Group. Subscribe to what we're doing. And anytime we're on, you will get a notification about the program. Next week, we'll be having another very insightful speaker to speak to us about the politics of Nigeria and how we can generally make Nigeria better. Gbadebo, we wish you Godspeed. Go
Thank you so much.
And have a very good campaign. Thank you, everybody, for coming on the platform. Enjoy the rest of your evening. My name is Sonny Enebi. On behalf of Pastor Ituah, I say au revoir.